Hello ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning into this week's episode of Jim Makes a Cartoon. I'm Jim and I'm making a cartoon. This week working a little more on episode 6-ish of Dictator Cat. Still not entirely sure what to call this one. Go ahead and click the links on the upper right as well as the video description if you haven't seen that yet. And if you have seen that, thanks a lot, I really appreciate it. Animated T-Dot said he thought it was good stuff. Thanks a lot, buddy. And apparently, Sick Ka digs the series. So big thanks to you as well. It really does mean worlds to me. Now, I do want to let you know that you don't have to post a compliment specifically if you want to get featured on the blog. If you post an interesting question or opinion, I do like to post those kinds of comments as well. So this week's vlog is actually a re-recording, kind of done at the last minute. Partially because after my first recording, I realized that my monologue was almost identical to a previous one. And the other reason is that a new controversial topic is kind of spreading like wildfire through the YouTube community. And that has to do with YouTube's advertiser-friendly content guidelines that outline what YouTube feels is appropriate for monetizable content. Now, despite having skimmed the YouTube policies when I started this channel, I will admit that I didn't look terribly closely. So it's not surprising that most likely a lot of other people on YouTube didn't really see this page either, which is why there's a bit of confusion about it. A lot of people seem to think that YouTube has changed its content policies, but in fact these are the same policies that have been in effect for a very long time. There are 5 rules your video must follow in order to be monetizable. To quote the guidelines, content that is considered not advertiser friendly includes, but is not limited to, 1. Sexually suggestive content, including partial nudity and sexual humor. 2. Violence, including display of serious injury and events related to violent extremism. 3. Inappropriate language, including harassment, profanity, and vulgar language. Alright, I'm not quoting here anymore, but that is a really poorly written rule. You use the word language twice. You really just should have said vulgarity at the end. Anyway, back to the rules. 4. Promotion of drugs and regulated substances, including selling, use, and abuse of such items. 5. Controversial or sensitive subjects and events, including subjects related to war, political conflicts, natural disasters and tragedies, even if graphic imagery is not shown. So, if you violate any of those guidelines and you depend on YouTube for your income, well, you're kind of out of luck. What's happening now is YouTube is actually alerting creators when their videos have had monetization shut off, which means that there are people out there who could have been unknowingly losing money because YouTube just turned off monetization and didn't tell them about it. So there's this real firestorm online because a lot of people really think that these are brand new guidelines and they're just suddenly having their income streams shut off, which the people at Google probably should have expected since they've done this a few times where they will introduce or remove a policy without really telling anybody about it or bothering to explain how it works. Like you think they'd learn their lesson the first few times. At best, nobody knows what sort of features are being implemented. For example, Google Wave, which most of you probably have never heard of, but was actually a really cool document editing service. Google did nothing to really advertise it or spread the word. Or at their very worst, the whole Google Plus integration with YouTube that pretty much was universally hated. Whether or not that was justified is beside the point. They never bothered to explain to people the benefits of their services. Like, I don't understand why Google didn't actually learn from the success of Gmail. Gmail started out as an invitation-only system relying on word of mouth. Basically, if you got invited to join Gmail, you got to experience it for yourself, and if you liked it, you could invite other people to it, and it spread because Gmail is a really good service. They didn't just suddenly put an AdSense ad up that said, hey, here's Gmail, use it now. That wouldn't have been effective. In other words, they gave people time to adjust to this new service, and they kind of had time to get used to it and research and hear about it. When you suddenly just put a new service, or in this case, a set of terms and conditions into people's laps and don't explain anything about it, they're going to get upset. But one good thing that's come of this, I think, is that it started a discussion over how much power we've given this website. YouTube has emerged as the dominant force in online video. By some estimations, YouTube actually accounts for between 9 and 10% of all downstream traffic. While that may not sound like a ton, that's 10% of all internet traffic when there are an estimated 1 billion active websites. Basically, YouTube is as close to a monopoly of online video as you can get. And so the problem here is the language of these guidelines is pretty vague. Like, does a male with his shirt off count as partial nudity? Inappropriate language varies from region to region. The biggest problem I have is the last rule about controversial or sensitive subjects and events. I mean, that is so vague. And bear in mind, there are legitimate news channels on YouTube. Are these journalists expected to not cover certain events so that they can make a living? According to the wording, even just talking about these events could potentially cause a loss of revenue. My generation saw the rise of the internet. It gave rise to the idea of taking down the oligopoly of big media and replacing it citizen journalism and independent entertainment. But sometimes when it comes to these matters, it feels like we've just taken down one oligarchy and replaced it with another. So tell me what you think about this. Do you think this awareness of the guidelines is going to drive positive change, or do you think we're just going to stop paying attention to it after a couple of weeks? Let's talk about it in the comments section. Well, that's it for this week. Thanks again so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Please remember to like and subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, please remember to share this video. Basically, do the opposite of whatever YouTube does whenever it wants to change its guidelines. I'll see all of you wonderful people next Friday.